All right, welcome to Sauvignon Blanc. That is going to be our topic of conversation today. We're going to taste through 3 of the 4 that we have on our menu. We're not going to taste the Inglenook because it's very, very hard to get. A, and B, we have a limited allocation that we can get every year. There's a cool story about Inglenook I'll tell at the end. Their producer site was down today, so I couldn't get their technical data sheet. But all of these sheets that I provide you guys with, you can find it on their websites. That's part of how I taught myself about the wines that I had on another list of other places. Is I go to their website and read these. They'll be under either technical data, they'll be under shelf tracker, something like that on the websites. If it's an imported wine, a lot of times they don't design their websites as beautifully as we do, and they don't necessarily use PDFs. So you can go to the importer site. So if it's an imported wine, on the back of the label, by law, they have to put who imported it into the United States. So Cloudy Bay is actually part of a group that's here in the United States, or part of Duckhorn. So Duckhorn's got their own importation company, so you can find them there. It's just like the Bacardi brand. It's not just Bacardi that's represented under that brand. It's hundreds of labels. So same with the Duckhorn. That's part of what they do, is that they have certain labels that they import and represent. It doesn't mean they produce the wine. It just means they help in getting that wine to the people. Cool? All right, so Sauvignon Blanc. First of all, who can tell me where Sauvignon Blanc originates from other than Marshall?
France?
It does. Specifically where?
The Bordeaux region.
Yes. Or Loire Valley. Although they're finding that Salvannes, France might be the more accurate area from which that it's from, which is right in between the two, more in central France. It's commonly believed that this comes from Bordeaux and from Loire. And the biggest expressions that you see, or the most representative expressions in France, come from Loire and they come from Bordeaux. So if you ever enjoy a bottle of white from the Bordeaux region, it's going to be Sauvignon Blanc. Even though the bottle will say Bordeaux or Bordeaux Blanc, you guys have a camera. It will also typically be mixed with Sauvignon or Semillon if it comes from that particular growing area. So as I was saying, even though it says white Bordeaux, it is going to be the Sauvignon Blanc grape in there. There's also things like Pouilly-Fumé, Sancerre. Those are Sauvignon Blancs as well. Like if you see Pouilly-Fumé, that implies that it's from the town of Pouilly and Fumé. So if you see like on a Chardonnay from Burgundy, Chassenay-Montrachet, that's the two towns that are represented where those vineyard sites are from. Does that make sense? One thing we're going to do next week is I'm going to go through how to read a wine label. I'm going to have a whole breakdown on how you read a wine label because it's different everywhere in the world. Italy gets super complicated depending on the DOC or DOCG, whereas like Germany, how they label their wines, like if it says, Spätlese, Auslese, that is a sweetness chart basically on their wines. So they're not all as straightforward as you think. In the New World, typically they're going to put the main varietal and the producer and the year, and if they name it something else, like the Big Easy, that's what they put on it, the name of the wine. New World's typically really easy to read, Old World sucks. So we'll go over that more in depth next week. So what do we know about Chardonnay? Well, it's dry, it's crisp, it's clean. Or Sauvignon Blanc, I'm sorry. We've got Chardonnay on the mind. I don't know, I had tasting Northern Italian Chardonnay a couple days ago, and I just love it. Let's keep in mind that Chardonnay, depending on the climate, can go from Jesus, I said Chardonnay?
Yeah.
Sauvignon Blanc can go from aggressively grassy all the way down to more tropical and fruit driven. you're always going to get characteristics of grass in the nose. But it's a matter of the climate that determines how much that you're going to get in the nose and the palate, how much citrus you're going to get on the palate and in the nose. For example, which the first wine that we poured is the Tangent Sauvignon Blanc. Tangent is grown at some of the highest elevations in all of California. So with that being said, you're not getting as much ripeness. So though not getting as much ripeness means you're not getting as much sugar, so therefore you're getting more of those old world sensations that Sauvignon Blanc is very well known for. Okay, so Whitney, when you put your nose in that glass, are you getting a lot of notes of grass?
Of grass?
Mm-hmm. And grapefruit.
I don't know. It smells. I have a very sophisticated
That's
nose.
that's why we're going to do this and keep learning.
It kind of smells more like you say pear? Yeah, or like melon or something like that.
Yeah, good.
That's good. I actually really like
That Tangent?
Yeah.
They're an awesome. When I get to the producer notes at the end, they're just such a cool story. So that is effectively the flavor notes you're going to get. With Sauvignon Blanc, you will always get nice acidity. The grape is a cool weather grape, okay? It thrives in cool climates. It doesn't do well in really hot climates. The reason being, I mean, obviously from France, but that's the tendency for it. We all know that you can try to grow like cacti in Nebraska, but the cactus isn't going to like it outdoors. It's just not. You know, every plant has something that, a climate that it's germane to or somewhere it thrives. Sauvignon Blanc really loves the cool weather. Okay, very thin skin. So with that being said, it doesn't take that long to ripen. Cooler climates, you get a better product. Okay, so that's something to note about the climate that it thrives in. Sauvignon Blanc is grown all over the world, but it's best from high elevation in Australia, New Zealand, and the Marlborough. Obviously, the two areas of France we discussed. With the climate in Napa Valley and those cool diurnal shifts that happen in the fogs, it loves some Napa. Loves some Napa. It also really loves Washington State as well. I have had some Chilean Sauvignon Blanc not too long ago that's, yeah, super interesting. I didn't love it, but it was super interesting. Super interesting. So you will see Sauvignon Blanc grow throughout the world, but know that it does better in cool climates. Okay? The first plantings were introduced in California by Cresta Bianco Winery in Livermore Valley. And this actually traces back to the 18th century when they started producing Sauvignon Blanc worldwide. It was probably earlier than that, but that's really where you start to see Sauvignon Blanc come into fruition. Just a couple of notes about, we're not going to talk a lot about the regions that it grows in. I just want you to be aware that when you see things like, we would say, when you see some of those different names, that it does represent Sauvignon Blanc. So really the rest on these regions is just more for your knowledge. When I was writing this, I'm like, I really went a little too geeky on this. We just need Cliff's Notes. We're all tired. We worked a heck of a service. I don't need to stay down here for an hour and, you'll lose interest. So the first one that you're tasting today, and again, Cameron, do you want a glass to smell?
No, thank you.
We are going to go through 3 of our Sauvignon Blancs. Like I said, we're not going to focus so much on the Inglenook. I want to get you all's tasting notes. I'm going to call on each one of you at some point to tell me what you're tasting and the sensations you're getting. All 3 of these Sauvignon Blancs are done a little bit different stylistically. Even though that 2 of which are from California, 1 is New Zealand, they're all unique and different in their own special way. Okay? Let's start off with Tangent. Of course, this is certified as sustainable, as all of the wines of Tangier are one of the highest sustainability certificates you can get in California. This is a group of ladies that are working with cool weather climates in the highest elevations of California, right? And they're doing things like Albarino, Sauvignon Blanc. Albarino, of course, the main beautiful white wine grape of Spain. You wouldn't think that that would thrive, but it does. And they do it very clean and classic, okay? So this guy is not gonna see any oak influence. This is all stainless steel. This is also a part of our eco-friendly wine tap system. Typically you wanna drink this between 16 and 18 degrees Celsius, so really quite cold. All right, that's, you're talking about 42 to 46 degrees, you know. So the first person I'm going to call on for tasting sensations and what they're getting is Ella. I want you to give me, what are you tasting in the wine?
There's no wrong answer.
No wrong answer.
Somewhere between champagne.
Nice. Nice. How about you, Lindsay?
I don't know if it's necessarily grass, but definitely more vegetable notes.
Cool.
A little bit of like the grapefruit, but I'm getting more of those.
What do you mean there's no wrong answer?
Wine is subjective.
Everyone will taste different things, you know. We talked last time about how if you've never like smelled something, like we were talking about like I get pear. If you've never like sat and smelled a pear, you're not going to be able to recognize that. So everyone just gets a different feel for how the wine is. Now, I mean, if you were like tobacco, like raw tobacco, like in terms of in the realm of if you're like, I feel like this tastes like apricot to me, even if in the notes it's like they don't say that.
So then,
That's one of the sensations that you're getting, you know. And that's the second part of not only just teaching Sauvignon Blanc, I want to start getting you guys talking about wine and what you're tasting and what you're smelling and what you're feeling. Because wine invokes emotion and it invokes, you know, flavor sensations in your palate.
is
So
there a way to figure out how to describe wines more universally, to where like, so how do I sell this? Okay. A guest asked me, what are the tasting notes in Tangent? That means that there could be so many, and it could be from my personal experience of tasting Tangent. I don't know. Does anyone understand what I'm trying to say?
So-
I'm trying to say, how do you accurately
How
describe
do I
how
accurately
the wine
answer
is?
that?
Sauvignon Blanc typically has these notes of grass, grapefruit, stone fruit. When I taste it, I do get some peach. I get this lovely elderflower on the nose, which I was hoping someone would pick that note, but because you do get a little elderflower typically on that New World style, you know, and it's got great balance and a little more acid, which of course is that sensation of your mouth watering as we know last week.
You can describe the feel too. It's crisp. It's
Mhm.
light.
Clean.
That's what I always say was
It's like if we're comparing Sauvignon Blancs. Like, what do you think Tangent versus Silverado? Like,
Well, we're gonna
if it's
As soon as we're done, we pour
Okay,
the Silverado
okay.
for everyone.
sorry, I'm not trying to get ahead. I'm just like, so if the Sauvignon Blanc grape is crisp, clean, then aren't they both gonna taste the same?
After you taste the Silverado, I want you to tell me.
Okay.
Okay?
A lot of it depends like where. It's just like with oysters. The flavor changes based off of where it's from.
The idea of terroir.
Exactly. Like it changes it so much.
You said acidity makes your mouth water.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
Why is that good?
Acidity? And you've been into a lemon, right? Acid makes you salivate. That's the natural body. That's your body's reaction to acid.
You're saying why is it good?
Oh, why is
do
it
you
good?
want your mouth
I'm
water?
sorry, I didn't hear you correctly.
No, it's okay.
A lot of that, for food reasons, you're going to cut through, you know, acid cuts through certain foods. It complements foods very well. I like that sensation of acid. You know, to me, it just brings out a brightness in both food and wine. Probably why, you know, my stomach's always gargling because I eat so much acidic food. I love that sensation of acid. Some people don't like acid at all. They don't like their mouth watering. They don't like their stomach feeling kind of gurgly and burning. You know? So really, it's a matter of personal preference and food pairing.
Okay, thank you.
Mainly in the old world, wine was designed to go with food. You know, it's not just sitting on the porch. I mean, it is common practice now, but really when you think about it, that's the designation of what wine was in the old world for. That's why Sauvignon Blanc in particular is great with hearty cheese.
That's why I was eating it with the teacher.
Yeah. It's perfect for that sort of thing. Cool.
And then
Good questions.
You would introduce the Sauvignon Blanc in the beginning of the course, or would you do like in the middle when they're about to get their entrees?
Really, it depends on what they're eating and what their preference is. You know, when it comes to the dining, because of how we send our food out here, I don't think that it really matters when so much. You know, most of our Sauvignon Blanc drinkers I am finding here at Plank, they just want Sauvignon Blanc. It doesn't matter what they're having. It doesn't matter. You know, that's what they want. You know, I've had a few that I've paired some Sauvignon Blancs, and they're very happy with it. But for the most part, they just want to drink it because they love it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So let's get ready to move on to Silverado. Whitney's got a dissertation here. So please empty your glasses. This is 93% Sauvignon Blanc and 7% Semillon. Okay? Why did Silverado, Marshall, why do you think they would choose to put a little Semillon on this? What is your guess?
What did you say the percentage was?
93.7.
93% Sauvignon.
Yep.
I'm not really sure. I think of it as a balancing grape, but Sauvignon is usually okay.
Your answer is 100% correct. So to add a little roundness and balance, those vintage to vintage, you'll find grape producers that blend in one grape with the other will change their percentages to keep a consistent, amazing product. Because everyone knows that every year the weather changes, right? I mean, let's take a look at February here in the great city of Austin. You know, something that's once in a generation. Obviously, if you're producing wine or you're growing vegetables or anything else, that is going to affect that growth. So, to give the guests or your clients the product they want, you're going to change some of those percentages and play with it a little bit. Okay. One of the cool things I think about the way that California can label is that it has to be 75% of the varietal type. So if you see a Sauvignon Blanc, the AVA law in California states that it must be at least 75% Sauvignon Blanc for you to call it a Sauvignon Blanc. Otherwise, then it becomes a blend, right? So they can actually tinker with it a little bit. The laws aren't so rigid to where there's a little more creative license. When we start to getting into Italians, you're going to see what I mean, because there's so many flipping laws. There's 440 DOC level or higher growing areas in Italy alone, when they all have a different set of rules. Every single one of them. So Barolo is a great example. Must be 2 years in barrel. 100% Nebbiolo. Can only grow between 300 and 500 meters of elevation. Must be in one of these 13 communes. Must age for a further year in bottle. Green harvest must happen. No irrigation. And that's one of 440 different sets of laws. A lot of fun to learn all of those. For the when I took my IWP, I had to know at least 75% of them, because they said that 75% of those 440 that are classics, not necessarily in the last 10 years, could be on that exam. That wasn't fun. Okay, we left off at Whitney Forston. Give me some tasting notes on this Miller Ranch Sauvignon Blanc.
It's very crisp and clean compared to the other ones. Be more like carrots and this. Alice, maybe.
Cool. I like it. We are a little lower in elevation, so she's giving you more of the fruit sensations compared to the last, which is very typical for what you would get of this style of Chardonnay. Sauvignon Blanc, sorry, no one caught it. As opposed to the last. Okay?
I heard this.
Did it on purpose, all right? Silverado's, again, family owned, 100% sustainable and organic in their practices. They've been around, gosh, 1970s. Really cool family. Just cool producers that produce higher end vino at a price that is more approachable. They're right in that same vein as like Heights Cellars, as Fez Parker, of just being those great family owned, estate bottled producers. When I say estate bottled, what that means is they do everything. They grow it there. They bottle it on their property. They're not sourcing grapes from other farmers. This is their work. Okay? We try to work with all of those. And since, Whitney, you wanted to ask what the differences were, why don't you tell me what the differences are?
It's, I don't know, it's different. I just don't know. I don't know how. Like that one smelled a lot more, a lot stronger to me. This one's like a lot more muted. I can't really sense much when I
A
smell
little
it.
more acidity. Feels like lighter on the tongue a little bit, maybe.
And it has more acidity in it.
I was gonna say the opposite, and I feel like tangent's lighter. Like this is like the mouth feels
It feels like it's attacking
thicker
me.
or like.
But this one feels a little bit more tropical to me.
This, I
Cool.
get pineapple right.
Yeah, I was
Nice.
gonna say,
Pineapple was the first thing
you
that
know
I
how when you have like pineapple and you soak it in salt water and you just leave the pineapple juice in your fridge for like a couple days? This is how it smells.
It's like when you have like pineapple in a refrigerator.
When you have your pineapple sitting in your fridge for too long.
I love it. I love it. Now we're seeing a warmer growing climate. You're getting more of those sensations. That's awesome. Great deductions. Great deductions. Skylar?
I got a little more lime, green citrus in this one. The other one was more of a grapefruit, but this one's more of a lime.
I
Nice.
guess the other one is cleaner, and this
Okay.
is very like
Yeah.
it hits you.
Like heavier, is that right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Again, sugar viscosity, higher alcohol content. Let's see, in the 20 vintage, just so I have this correct for you all, 13.2 in that one. Tangent is, 13. So, I mean,
Really nominal.
yeah, nominal. But, as you know, Marshall and wine, every little uptick.
You know what the biggest thing that changed the alcohol content is?
What's that?
What changes the alcohol content of wine?
Sugar. Sugar.
So this one is at a higher elevation than
Lower elevation on
lower. Okay.
lower on the Silverado.
Okay.
So I feel like in this one you get much more of those like tropical notes and fruity notes versus in the other one. With that higher elevation, you're not going to receive quite as much of those. Am
The
I
right,
correct in that?
yeah, just the ripeness level is going to change. The heat changes the amount of sugar.
Yeah, so the hotter years produce more alcohol in the wine,
Mhm.
which is strange.
Just the effect of sugar and yeast working in fermentation. Cool notes. So, selling point, Sarah. Guest asked you, what do you think about Silverado Sauvignon Blanc? What's your response going to be?
I would say it's very kind of hits you and I don't know exactly what the word is that I'm trying to think, but it's very like citrusy. It's very powerful at first, but then it's kind of smooth at the end. That's what I would say.
Good notes. I like it. Well done. How about you, Lindsay?
I mean, honestly, it happened in my mind just a second ago.
Pineapple.
I know that's kind of what I was gonna say though, is that it is a great wine if you are looking for something that's slightly more fruit forward, but doesn't have an overpowering to it in that sense. You are gonna get hit with that pineapple and some of those lime aromas as well as taste, but it's not gonna be in the consumer's mind overly sweet where you're comparing it to like Moscato or something like that are generally known as having more fruit in them. It's got a very nice balance between that.
I love it. Those are great notes. So that is, ladies and gentlemen, Napa Valley Sauvignon Blanc. Now you see two from the New World. You see immense differences between them, right? Super cool, super fun out. To finish up, we're gonna go with the most unique stylistically of all. Cloudy Bay from New Zealand, which is, here we are. When it comes to New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, I'm going to be honest, I've had a lot of conversation with Marshall about this. It's not my jam. But people absolutely love this, and it's great with our cuisine. The biggest thing you're going to know is when you put your nose in the glass, this is going to be so distinctly different from the last two you just smelled. It is pronounced, it is strong, it is undeniable. And Cloudy Bay, of course, is probably the most infamous producer in all of New Zealand for the Sauvignon Blanc grape. Really, Sauvignon Blanc in New Zealand, it wasn't necessarily, I would call it a mistake, but it was an experiment. Okay, they were planting it with Semillon when they were young in the late 80s, early 90s. Really kind of became a huge fad. The thing about, and what gives it the characteristics that it has, is the amount of UV light that goes in by the coast of the Marlborough, okay? You're also thinking, well, this is New Zealand, like, isn't it extremely warm? Well, you're pretty close to the South Pole. Where this grows is actually really temperate in a maritime climate. But the unique concentration of ultraviolet light has a distinct effect on taste and smell of New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. It's unmistakable, okay? Thank you for destroying the ozone layer, because really that's what happens, you know? No, I'm just talking about humans in general. But because of the lessening of the ozone layer, that's where you're getting that very distinct nose. Okay, Ella, please tell me what you have in the nose there, compared to the other
I haven't
two.
tasted yet, sorry.
Okay.
Aroma.
You know what? This actually can fool me as a Chardonnay.
Really?
I don't know, you say keep saying Chardonnay. I'm like, this smell like Chardonnay. Am I crazy?
No, not necessarily. Not at all.
It's very. I smell pine tree. Is that weird?
I've never heard that about a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. That's awesome. Never. I mean, if that is what you're smelling, obviously there's some sort of cognitive memory that's got you
It
smelling
reminds me
that.
of pine tree or like Christmas tree.
I did
Take
a
a
lot
note now.
of grapefruit in this one than I did in the other.
Okay.
I actually can smell grapefruit this one.
Is anyone getting like really strong lemongrass?
Yes.
That grass note is. You look disappointed.
No. I mean, it's better than other New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs. I don't get. I frequently get ammonia on New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs. It's not super strong here. It's not that bad.
This tastes like so much more smooth.
Yeah.
Like almost no acidity. There's no after like.
I know.
Just like it doesn't linger for long.
Yeah.
It's quick and clean.
It's like really.
But the one before, it stayed. It like attacked it.
And so this is New Zealand. This is Old World oak barrels.
This could be New World.
Oh, it's still New World.
New World, and there's still Europe is Old World. Everywhere else is New World. Easiest way in the world to know that fact. This is again stainless steel, no oak for the baseline. They do a couple reserve wines that they do age their Sauvignon in oak, but we don't carry them.
Is
If the
there?
cap is twist, is it stainless steel?
Not necessarily. Sauvignon Blanc is meant to be drink young, so the easiest way to look at a Sauvignon closure is it's a wine that's meant to be drank in its youth as opposed to sitting down. It will age, and it ages okay, but you want to drink current vintage when it comes to stuff like that.
Screw caps used to be like a defining thing of like a garbage wine, but now it's just like a way to seal.
Yep.
Yeah, it is, and you don't have the possibility of corking a wine that doesn't have cork. So
It's also cork,
If it's corked, is it definitely barrel?
not necessarily either. Not necessarily either.
There we go.
And I know that I think Pinot Grigio and Pinot Gris, the reason why they're different is because of the location that they're in. Is that the same thing for a Sauvignon Blanc?
Great question. So it could depend on the appellation. It could depend on where it's grown. Or it could be just very simply like our friend Robert Mondavi, who started growing in 1967 here in the U.S. And it was doing terribly for him. So he renamed it Fumé. So like a burnt. Now you see Fumé Blanc on many Napa Valley in California labels. It's only germane to California. It's still Sauvignon Blanc. So if you see Fumé Blanc, it's just California Sauvignon Blanc.
Because I know somebody said something about like, like Sauv Blanc and Sauvignon Blanc are two different things.
No.
Okay, because I know that Pinot Grigio, one is from Italy, one is from California.
Same grape. The term Pinot Gris actually refers to where it's native, which is Alsace in France.
Oh, okay.
So, but it just kind of depends on the nomenclature that they choose to use. They are the same grape.
Okay.
So, to conclude, Sauvignon Blanc is from France. It's crisp, it's clean. It's got grassy citrus notes with fleshy stone fruit. It grows well all over the world, but particularly well in France, New Zealand, California, and higher elevations. Any other questions? I know there was a very brief synopsis of Sauvignon Blanc. Unfortunately, with a half-hour late start, kind of cut it out a little bit. Thank you all for attending. If you have any questions further, always here to talk to me.
thanks, Adam.